from Artisan Boatworks is going to be joining us shortly. And Alec, you are not on yet, and we're just going to dial you in now. And he is moments away. There's Alec. Hi, Alec.
Everybody.
Great. Well, thanks for being here, Alec.
Thank you.
We are eager to hear about how you came to this shop. Artisan Boatworks has been in business for how long now?
We started in 2002, so about 18 years ago.
In 2002, and if I recall, building relatively small day sailors in the Herreshoff tradition.
Yep.
And
exactly.
I've watched this yard grow from pretty much a backyard enterprise to a substantial boatyard with a great storage facility and sort of a museum of yachts out behind your shop, which with your Wi-Fi connection willing, we'll take a tour of in a little while. But before we do that, and before we get to a few broad questions, let's talk about some of your recent builds and not so recent builds, and just to give a little background of the quality of your work and vision. Tell us about this boat, Alec.
So that is a Buzzards Bay 18, a Herreshoff design from 1904 that we built. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but mid-2000s, and it's a fairly faithful replica of the original. We'd built quite a few of the smaller Buzzards Bay 15s up until then. These are all waterline lengths, so the Buzzards Bay 15 is 25 feet on deck, and this is 29. And I was enamored with the idea of a slightly larger version of that same boat, something that was just big enough to have a little engine down below and potentially spend the night on. So this is a design that had sort of been a dream for me for a long time. And when an opportunity finally came along to build one, we were pretty excited about it.
Great. And now this is the same boat, if I recall, that was on the cover of WoodenBoat before she launched. This is the same day, I think, but she appeared on the cover of WoodenBoat magazine.
Yeah, that photo was taken when we were rigging the boat down at the harbor prior to the launch, and then it was sort of a magical circumstance where we just had to get it around to the to Camden, around to the other side of the point, and my wife Erin was there. My parents were there looking after the two girls who were pretty young at that point. So we just hopped in and decided to sail it around. So this was the maiden voyage, and thankfully everything was led pretty much correctly, and we sailed away, and we ran into Alison Langley with her chase boat out in the outer harbor, and I think she was on her way back from another job, and it was thick fog. We didn't have a GPS, and we were just nervous about even finding Camden, and we sort of sailed into this little hole in the fog where the sun came through, and Alison was able to get a series of these really great shots.
Great. And you now, if I recall, your initial boats were all Herreshoff day sailors, but you have also done some BB Crown and Shield classics, including this Dark Harbor 17.
Yep. Phoenix is one of the first entirely new boats that we built. We'd done a few restorations, but we did Phoenix for Bill Saltonstall out on North Haven, and he was just a wonderful gentleman to work with, and it was a great project. I grew up sailing the smaller Dark Harbor 12s at Bucks Harbor, so that's another design that had always been a dream for me to be able to build, and we were really grateful to do it. After Phoenix, we've since restored 3 others, and they all get together every once in a while. Either for the Round the Island race out on North Haven, or more recently the Camden Classics Regatta in Camden the last weekend in July has been a really great gathering of these dark harbors.
Oh, fun! But it isn't all sailboats for you.
No, we're try to do as many powerboats as we can. I think the spirit of tradition, so to speak, with powerboats is something that's just beginning to be explored. The photo up there is a tender that we built for a 140-foot classic motor yacht that was being restored, and it was a wonderful project because the owner's vision was to have something that looked very period, but to fully modernize it, both from a construction standpoint and a user interface standpoint. So it's got every bell and whistle known to man, sort of artfully disguised behind teak paneling.
Now let's talk about a few of those, because I saw this boat soon after launching, and right around the time this photo was taken. And particularly fascinating about this is this Surrey top. Do we call it a Surrey top? And
that was your term, and I love it. I had a dictionary.
Well, I can't claim it. I've heard it elsewhere, but it is it's lowerable, if I can coin a word. And raisable.
Yeah, it's got 4 electric actuators that lower it down to the coaming, so that when the boat is up on the upper deck of the mothership, it's fairly low profile, and it makes it easier to transport too. The whole boat can slide into a container.
How did you engineer that? I imagine that's not something you buy off the shelf.
There's a lot of research. So a big shout out to Matt Smith in Barrington, Rhode Island. He's the designer and the engineer who made this whole thing happen. And we started out with the plans for the tender to Corsair.
Herreshoff plans. These were original Herreshoff plans.
Yep. So the cockpit arrangement and the profile and most of the joinery details are taken straight from the Corsair plans. But Matt really deserves all the credit for the engineering behind making things like the Bimini work. And it was a process. There's always a little celebration when you hit the button and it actually goes up.
Yeah, right. Still.
Yeah.
And this boat was sent across the country, if I recall. I was
several times actually. The mothership was refit out in San Diego, and we sent ourselves across the country quite a few times for that project as well, doing deck furniture and hatches and things like that. But we sent the tender across to join the mothership, and then there were some delays with the mothership, and the owner decided he'd like to use the tender back here in Maine. So the boat was shipped back for a summer, and then shipped back to San Diego again. So they're very portable.
Nice. So that's just a small sampling, Alec, of really what's been an illustrious career so far in building classic yachts. And I'm wondering how you got here, and not just what is the physical path to arriving here, but what motivated you to do this, and what was your vision?
It's a good question. I made the mistake of buying a dilapidated wooden Hinckley Islander when I was 18 or 19 years old. And every life decision I made for the next 20 years after I acquired that boat was solely focused on getting that boat fixed up so I could sail it around the world. That's all I thought about. And lo and behold, the dust settled, and the boat hadn't really gotten very far, but there was a boatyard here instead. And then it was just, we never looked back.
Right. Well, and how has the vision comported with the reality?
It's been good. It's been steady growth, and I laugh when I see photos of these old New England buildings where you've got sheds off dormers and L's and more sheds, and we've always managed to expand just as circumstances required, and we've been incredibly fortunate. There's definitely some years that have been better than others, but we've managed to sort of stick to the vision, and here we are. Great.
Well, good work. Now, Alec, and also people watching, I see in the comments that some people are having trouble with fuzziness and the appearance of the screen. That might be the connection speed here. I'm going to take a moment just to close something on my computer and see if that helps. Bear with me for a moment, folks. And while I'm doing that, Alec, let's prepare to take a walk about the shop, if we may.
Sure.
And we'd love to see some of your current projects. But as you're walking out there, I'm just going to tend to a little housekeeping here and see if we can speed things up for people.
Okay.
Thanks. And if folks watching at home could chime in with comments, just tell me, Jim Reineck, thank you for that. Not fuzzy for you. So it may be the connection speed on the other end too. And I apologize if it's us. We'll we'll look into how to make things more efficient here.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great still, Alec. Thanks.
So I'm going to apologize in advance. The screen is, the camera is mirrored. And so if I'm looking at the floor instead of the ceiling, just, you know, try to get me back on track.
Okay.
We're in main construction bay of the shop right now, which is what was the only bay way back when we started in 2002. And we are building a new Camden class knockabout. This is a 29-foot day sailor that was designed by B.B. Crowninshield in 1915. So sort of a stretched out version of the Dark Harbor 17, like Phoenix that you showed the photo of. And it's a pretty neat story. There's a gentleman in Western Massachusetts who built the hull himself over a period of 20 years. And well, maybe not that long, maybe 10 years. And then it sat for another 10 years. And he finally said, you know what, we got to get this boat finished. And so he came to us and we're, you know, started out as a bare hull, and we've glassed in the bulkheads and the deck and building the house. And we got a rig from an old Dark Harbor 17, and we're reusing those spars. And we got all the deck hardware from a derelict Camden class knockabout, one of the original 4 that was built.
Where was that boat, Alec? Where does one find a derelict Camden class?
That's a good question. It's over at Bruce Malone's. What's left of it, it's compost at this point, with alders growing up through the planking. But we've actually been over there a lot studying details, you know, scraping the moss off and trying to measure the width of some of the cockpit trim. And so the boat's going to have some great history. It was, you know, half built by Mark, half built by us, and the spars and the hardware all sort of have their own, you know, their own soul from previous boats. And our plan is to launch her on the eve of the Camden Classic Regatta the last weekend in July. So that's been set. We've got a few components here. The house, if you can see, the coamings were steamed on the boat, and then the house top was planked. James Kimmett has been doing this project. It's one of the nicest pieces of oak I've ever had come through the shop. I don't know if you can see.
Beautiful, yeah.
And there's the joint where the 2 pieces come together in the front, and this is just a flawless piece of wood. We were really lucky to get a hold of.
And the house top, are there beams in that, or is that molded with no beams?
There are, yep. There are laminated beams. It's a tricky shape that James did a really good job figuring out. I don't know if you can see up in there, all right. We're going to flip it over tomorrow and get all of the paint finish on the underside before it's glued on the boat.
That must be a great time saver, Alec, to work on that upside down and not overhead.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yep. Yeah. It's hard to take it off the boat. You know, it's stimulating to see it all get to put together, and then it's hard to take things back apart again, but it's all for the sake of progress.
Yeah.
Here's the rudder that's being made. And then next door here, we're coming into the machine room, and we've just finished building a 50-foot mast for a Starling Burgess designed R-class sloop called Rowita that races down in Newport. The boat was restored by Iris a handful of years ago in Newport, and I don't know if you can see very well from this perspective, but it's got an awesome curve built into it, like the S boats, and it's a very you know, lightweight, well-engineered spar.
Yeah, and is this built with typical staves for each face, or are there staves within the staves within the sides?
It's pretty interesting. It's 8 staves. There are 4 rabbeted corner staves that maintain their dimensions, pretty much the whole length of the mast, and then the side staves and the fore and aft staves taper.
Okay. And would you go back to the crane for a moment? May we see the masthead, and how is that reinforced? Is there a composite plate in there, or bronze, or what?
No, there's some solid block. It's solid blocking, probably down to about 18 inches or so. but it's it's all pretty straightforward. The boat was designed by Starling Burgess in 1926, and yeah, the mast lasted this long.
We have a question here, Alec, from John Wilson about he's wondering about heat and humidity in your shop.
Good question.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to know you're out there. We heat and humidity, like everything else in the shop, is a moving target, and depending on what we have in here at the time, we're constantly making adjustments and going to lengths to keep it where we want. When we're working on, we have radiant heat here in the main shop, but not in the paint shop, because here in the main shop, we generally, like to keep things steady. And if we're doing a traditionally planked boat, we'll try to keep the humidity up at about 50% with humidifiers. But out in the paint shop, where we're just bringing a boat in for a week or two sometimes, we try to keep the humidity a lot higher and have a lot more control over the temperature. So I'll show you when we go out there. But we'll, often crank the heat up to 70, 72 when we're painting or varnishing, and then drop it down to 45 over the weekend, so the boats don't dry out.
Now, we did an article a few years ago on your planking method on 12.5s of edge gluing planking, which flies in the face of convention, and you've had great success with it. And that, if I recall, requires some real attention to heat and humidity.
Yeah, and good maintenance. I think there's no substitute for good maintenance, and thankfully the boats that we've done over the years are all receiving the best. So here we are in the paint bay. This is a little beetle cat that is getting a fairly significant cosmetic makeover. This is a boat that sails out on Nantucket, but all the boat yards on Nantucket are closed right now. So she came up to us to get some beautification. And I don't know, John, you can see the floors are wet, I think, but we wet the floors down a couple of times a day, and I'll show you the humidifiers next door. Here's the layouts of the buildings. These are all magnetic boats to help us figure out what goes where.
Oh, that's great.
Next door here, we've got a Dame of Sark. This is a Concordia yawl that was built in 1961. Tony's rolling a coat of bottom paint. Tony, wave.
Hi, Tony.
Here's one of the two humidifiers that we use, and we've got this one mounted down low to try to keep the bottom of the boat wet pretty much all the time, but still, allow it to be dry enough up on deck for paint and varnish. And it's on a humidity control that we can adjust. I'm going to attempt to go up a ladder right now, so if I lose you, that's you can imagine what happened.
We'll call for help.
We just brushed the final coat of varnish on the top sides yesterday, so she's looking her best. Dame of Sark has gotten a lot of work this spring. She's been in here for 2.5 weeks. We changed the deck color to sort of a darker shade of tan to match the owner's existing other boat. Done 2 coats on all the varnish, and we're doing a lot of hardware upgrades. Jim Reinick made this beautiful bronze Harkin style traveler that goes across the bridge deck that we just installed. We've got a couple of beautiful new Wilmex winches that are going on back here. So all the winches on the boat, both the halyard winches on the mast and the sheet winches back here in the cockpit, will all be self-tailing and utilize the modern handles. Reed Hayden up in Brooklyn redid the name for us. She's called Dame of Sark, but the owner decided to shorten it up to Dame because it fit better on the transom. What else have we done to Dame? We're installing a roller furler on the headsail that works in conjunction with a self-tacking jib. So we've got a little bit more hardware that's on the way to us from Jim Reinick to get the outhaul line and the furling line led back to nice bronze cam cleats in the cockpit.
Alec, I'm mesmerized by that finish. Can you tell us a little about the process? Is that rolled and tipped or brushed?
It is. These guys are magicians, and I don't pretend to know all their secrets, but it's I think experience goes a long way, and just a real thorough understanding of the product. We've gone back and forth. We've had a few people who like to just brush without rolling. We've had a few people who like to roll without brushing, and some people like to do it both. And I think it's more about experience than any particular technique. But it's impressive to see what they're able to do, for sure.
And is that what brand of varnish is that?
It's Epiphanes. Pretty much all the paint and varnish that we use in the shop are Epiphanes, and we use different products from them depending on whether we're doing high buildup, on new wood or just maintenance coats on an existing boat. You can see all the color charts at the top of the stairs there. Here's a nice view of the inside of the Beetle Cat.
And what condition did she come to you in?
She just needed a good cosmetic overhaul. She really hadn't seen much paint or varnish in a few years, and looked like maybe she'd sunk a few times. You can't see them under the tape, but the eyebrow molding around the perimeter was just tacked on with small nails, and that was coming away. So we refastened that. Did some refastening around the transom and the centerboard trunk, but for the most part, just paint and varnish. Can you see with a glare out here, or is this just like a wash of sunlight?
Oh no, it's not a wash of sunlight. We can see.
Good. Well, this is the boatyard. I can't see anything on the screen, so hopefully I'm sort of...
Well, the image is holding together so far. We'll let you know if it doesn't. We did do a test run, folks, so we have faith in this. So
this is Joker.
Oh yeah.
This is an original Herreshoff Bar Harbor 31 from 1903 that's patiently waiting for a restoration. And Matt, you'd asked me about next projects and what the dreams were, and this is at the top of the list. This is something we're really the whole crew is just dying to sink their teeth into.
How many Bar Harbor 31s are still sailing, Alec?
There's one called Scud that Federico Nardi is just finished restoring over in Italy. That's going to be racing in the Med this summer if they have racing. Bob Vaughn has Desperate Lark in Harborside, and those are the only other two that are sailing of the originals, and actually the only other two that are really known of at all. So
we are entering one of how many storage buildings?
We have 3 buildings. I don't remember how many square feet they are, but they're all about 120 by 60. We're looking up at the bow of a Lara here, a New York 30, the first of the New York 30s. And then a flatfish that Chip Flanagan built many years ago, Joel White design. Here's Vim. Can you see? Vim is a Newbert and Wallace lobster yacht that was built in 1957, and we restored her back in 2011, I think it was.
And was she an original working lobster boat that was?
She never fished. Converted? She was built as a commuter for a family on Islesboro, originally named Questor, and spent most of her life on Islesboro. Here's a Glea. This is a Buzzards Bay 15 that we just built last year.
And is this planking glued, edge glued, as we were discussing?
It is, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You can see it's holding up pretty nicely.
And it's cedar, right? It's northern white cedar.
Yep. There's a look up into the cockpit. This is the first one that we used teak for all the bright work, and that was a bit of a change, but worked out well. You can see a row of Dark Harbor 17s in the background: Phoenix, Frolic, and Tiger. All 3 boats go out to North Haven for the summer. Little Herreshoff 12.5 here in the foreground that we restored a few years ago. It's a neat little, this was a Cape Cod knockabout that somebody, Bill Buchholz refitted with electric power. So this is now an electric motorboat in a sailboat hull. a couple of the Sparkman and Stevens Dark Harbor 20s in the background that raced together out in Islesboro. There's a fish class, a Herreshoff fish class in the foreground that we built. She's got a little engine that makes a nice little coffee table in the cockpit.
Is that a little diesel engine?
Yep, yeah, a little Beta 14. This little dinghy in the foreground is one I built for the girls last year. It's a Chesapeake Lightcraft Tenderly dinghy that we made some modifications to try to lighten it up. So it's kind of a Joel White inspired Tenderly dinghy. Another little 12.5. We do take care of a couple of fiberglass boats. There's a Blue Nose sloop in the background and a dough dish.
Alec, the connection's getting a little bit spotty, but let's keep going. And I'm just going to warn everybody that if we do get cut off, Alec will retreat to Wi-Fi and we'll restart the broadcast. So stay with us.
All right, I'm going off the end of the earth here into building 3, and if it gets bad, just holler and I'll stop. You still hear me okay?
We can hear you okay, but it is pixelating. And, it's looking a little like an early lunar.
Still there, Matt?
Yes. Can you hear me, Alec?
Yeah, I started to lose you, so I'm going to turn around and head back.
Yeah. I think that would be wise. Is there another building across from this one?
Yep.
I think we walked through that
a
few days ago. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll give you here's the far view of Building 3. We opened the doors so you can see in, but our boat Nora's down at the far end with a Surprise next to her. Handful of 12.5s, a couple of the Camden high boats, some Dark Harbor 20s, a Rosinante. The green one sort of close to the front is a John Brooks Soam Sound 12.5. You can just see the bow of Sandpiper, a Winthrop Warner ketch that Bill Page built. Now belongs to Don Costanza. Here's a, you still hear me all right?
Yes, great. You're back in full force.
This is Beshert. She's the second Buzzards Bay 18 that we built. This is also our spar bay where all the masts come and go. Little Beetle Cat, Shellback Dinghy, Buzzards Bay 14. There's another older, original 12.5. Nice little Beach Pea. A Pisces. Here's a sweet little Augie Nielsen double ender called Sea Lady. We put a little diesel engine in last.
Oh, right.
Another Rosinante. We've got Tidal Wave and Emily Marshall in the background, a pair of nice little coastal cruisers.
Tidal Wave being the Rhodes double ender?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Here we have a Haven 12.5, a centerboard Haven 12.5, a Watch Hill 15 that we built in the background. Arian up there is a Rhodes yawl. And then Penobscot is another R boat in the back that was restored by Doug and Ellery over at Highland and Brown. We take care of her now.
Oh, Maynard Bray had her for years, didn't he?
Yes, yep, exactly. So I'm going to wander back towards the shop here.
Alec, what have you been doing with your afternoons? I saw some photos of a tree house recently, and I couldn't get them downsized to show them here, but it's pretty impressive. Global walking. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This having the kids home from school has been a real treat for us. Well, I speak for myself, maybe not so much for Aaron, but we've really enjoyed their company, and they've been outdoors constantly, and so yeah, we built the tree house, and it's definitely outside of the Wi-Fi range, but I've always been a huge fan of that sort of stick construction and the engineering that goes into having just the right number of 2x4s in the right places. And so we got a bunch of hemlock milled up by Viking that's actual 2x4 with square corners. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a little therapy project for me.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I just put a photo of your family up, and you're sailing your yawl Nora. And tell us a little about her and your cruising over the past few years.
Yeah, so another great photo by Allison Langley. We were asked to do this photo shoot and a little video for the Cruising Club of America, and so Allison came out with us for a day and shot a wonderful little video of the kids sailing and playing on the beach, and a couple of stills like that. But Nora's a 40-foot yawl that was built in 1961, the same year as Dame of Sark, and she's been lovely to us. We try to spend as much time on her during the summer as we possibly can, and you know, we're so lucky to live right in the middle of Penobscot Bay, where there's some of the best cruising in the world. So you know, the beauty of having a boatyard that's a few miles from the harbor is our slow season is actually July and August. And so we'll do a lot of long weekends. You know, if we get out of work at 3:30 on a Thursday, we can be anchored out in Pulpit Harbor by, you know, 5:30, and then just do a little loop around Vinyl Haven or go across to Stonington. And, you know, it's lovely.
And you've done a wonderful job with her of really managing the maintenance. I mean, clearly you have the capacity to maintain bright work at your yard, but I noticed you've painted out a lot of yours, but it looks beautiful. Can you tell us a little about the paint scheme and how you arrived at this? I see blue toe rails and.
Yeah, we definitely knew from the outset that we wouldn't be able to maintain a fully varnished boat. I really, you know, try hard to do almost all the maintenance myself, and you know, use the boatyard crew for as little as possible. You know, I think the one significant guilty pleasure is the spars. The girls and I spent two winters really stripping and refinishing all the varnish on the spars, and so we typically have the boatyard crew varnish those for us every year or every other year. But the paint finish has been wonderful. We you know, we'll just do touch-ups every spring, and you know, the top sides get painted maybe every 3 years. But yeah, she's been a real good you know, experiment just to you know, demonstrate that it is possible to take care of a larger wooden boat on you know, modest means. One of the things we had to do right off was she came with all these beautiful varnished ash blocks for the running rigging, and we packed them carefully away in a box for the next owner to maybe restore.
And replace them with
all Harkin blocks. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she's been a wonderful boat, and we've enjoyed getting to know her.
Great. And you touched earlier on your dream project on Joker, but tell us a little more about her needs and where she's been for the past however many years or decades.
Yeah, thanks. So all of Joker's all of her owners back to when she was built in 1903 are well accounted for. So she's got a very, you know, complete provenance, and just about everybody who's still alive I've been in contact with, either through my own research or they've seen, you know, our efforts to find somebody to restore her, and they've reached out. So we have a real wealth of historical information about the boat. She arrived at Seal Cove Boatyard up in Cape Rozier in the early 80s, and they took the deck off and the interior out and put in a whole set of laminated frames, which when we restore her, those will come out and we'll put new frames back in the original locations. But those laminated frames that Seal Cove put in have really ensured that her hull shape stays pretty true. So she's, you know, she doesn't have the ends hogging the way you see oftentimes. She's actually very strong for you know, for the way she looks. The planking's still in pretty good shape, but it's interesting. The way we approach the restoration will really depend a lot on the philosophy of the new owner. You know, there are a couple of different ways to approach a job like that. One being to really prioritize original material, like a lot of the folks in the Med seem to prefer, even if that means a lot of small repairs and Dutchmans and you know, short planks. You save as many molecules of original material as you can.
And that means building to the original shape, to the existing boat,
yes,
rather than a new jig.
yeah, and in either case, I think we would still, we would always restore a boat in such a way that it looked like a boat the whole time, and we would be very respectful about that process. But there are other sort of aficionados out there who would prefer to have a boat that was as much as possible like the boat was on her original launch day, meaning full-length planks and no repairs. So in that case, there's more emphasis on original design and original sort of you're basically building a new boat that looks and feels and behaves exactly like the one like this one did in 1903. So either approach is great, but definitely is a deep conversation.
Right. Yeah. Well, we can't wait to see that come together.
Me neither.
Here's hoping. Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Well, Alec, thank you for joining us today. This has been a wonderful tour and fascinating.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, great. And I look forward to seeing you on the water in a few weeks.
Excellent. Excellent. Yep. All right. Cheers, Matt.
Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone. Oh, and before we go, next week, next Wednesday, Harold Burnham will be joining us. Harold, shipwright from Essex, Massachusetts, and builder of many a replica vessel now. So tune in then, next Wednesday at 3:30. There'll be an announcement on the Facebook page. Bye.